And what the heck is that?
Yes. What does that mean? Fighting in the Clone Wars. And well, for many, many, many years, we had absolutely no idea. However, that's what we're going to be talking about today. There was an awesome series starting in 2008, I believe.
Yes.
This was, of course, after the micro series, which many of us saw and loved. And then you had the Clone Wars, starting with the Clone Wars movie. And
which was originally supposed to be the first episodes of the TV series, but Warner Brothers was like, this would make a great movie!
Sort of. Before we go any further, let me introduce our panel. First of all, my name is Joey Letson. I'm just a fan, like you guys. If you want to talk to me about Star Wars stuff, you can look me up on Facebook or on Twitter. I'm at Joey in Tucson. And we have over here Kyle Avery and Jason Hunt. Guys, why don't you tell us about your podcasts?
Like you said, my name is Kyle Avery. I do a podcast called Star Wars, The Saga Continues. We mostly talk about Episode 7, The Force Awakens, and we also talk a little bit about Star Wars Rebels and the Star Wars anthology films coming up. Basically, I actually had the idea to start the podcast like the day that Disney bought Lucasfilm, and we found out that there was going to be all this new Star Wars stuff. So we kind of just covered, all the news and rumors and all that kind of stuff about all the new and exciting projects coming up. But it's kind of a smaller, a little bit more of a fan type of, us geeking out about Star Wars as we're talking about this news and stuff. We're not like a big professional, here we interview so-and-so and let's get the official scoop from our sources. It's like, we make fun of the people who have bogus sources and just speculate on all the crazy rumors and stuff. So we have a lot of fun.
And I'm Jason Hunt. I'm one of the co-hosts of the Wampa's Lair podcast, which is a discussion-based podcast where we will talk about just about anything pertaining to Star Wars. Our latest episode is actually just all about Qui-Gon Jinn, so that was kind of cool. And we both have business cards with our information on it. If you want to come up afterwards, we'd be more than happy to promote ourselves.
Yeah, and they're really awesome podcasts, again, for all of your Star Wars needs. So, let's go ahead and begin the Clone Wars. Well, let's go ahead and first talk about the clones themselves. It's all about them and the war, anyway, right?
So, yeah, and we're going to be talking mostly about just sort of the way that the Clone Wars series has enhanced and maybe changed our perspectives on the Star Wars universe, fleshed it out, added to different areas that we didn't know much about, answered some unanswered questions from the films, things like that. So each of these bullet points are going to kind of be some big areas of the show that really we feel enhance the overall Star Wars experience.
And since it's over 120 episodes, we will be hitting broad points, so there are plenty of details that you guys would be more than happy to explore. Like we said, the complete series is on Netflix, so check it out.
Yes. Well, speaking of how enhancing the saga, really in episodes 2 and 3, we see the clones. We see them fighting a bit, but we don't really see much other of their individuality. For the most part, they're kind of seen as, dare I say, kind of drones in a lot of ways. They really look similar when they take off their helmets. There's not much different. And then, of course, Order 66 goes around and they all go burr, and then they kill the Jedi. We don't really get to know their personalities or, see any, really fall in love with these guys that much. They looked cool, but that was about it. However, the Clone Wars series, I think we really got to know some of these clones much better. Fives, Echo, Captain Rex. These are just some of the names that we have grown to love in the Clone Wars. So let's go ahead and watch a quick clip from the clones.
This is it. You know exactly. Those guns up there. Use them as a step to the next level. Form a chain and use each other to scale this space. Use the guns. Are you crazy? Trust me, I know weapons. I'm gonna draw their fire. You guys blast them.
That's about as loud as you can get, I think, on there, but you can try, please. So, gentlemen, tell us your thoughts on the clones.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Joey, I think the show really did a great job as far as fleshing out the personality of these clones as individuals. You know, in the movie, yeah, they were all clones that replicated their genetic. They're very just kind of cookie cutter, you know, really good soldiers, but we don't really know much about these guys as people. And for all we know, they could be, you know, mindless drones that are just really good at shooting a blaster. But then, as we see in the Clone Wars, you know, I mean, right from the get-go with the Clone Wars movie, they kind of went really far as giving these guys different haircuts and tattoos, and then we started seeing different variations of, you know, decorations and decals on their armor, and, you know, to the point where by the end of the show, I'm sure for those of you in here who are big Clone Wars fans like we are, like you probably got all your individual favorite clones, like, you know, Rex or Fives or Echo or any of those guys that you can recognize just by looking at their helmet, and, you know, they really diversify those guys. I also think, you know, D. Bradley Baker, of course, the voice of the clones, did a fantastic job. I think he was doing a good job from the start, but he obviously got better and better at it as the series went on, to the point where you can watch a scene in an episode with 5 or 6 different guys who look exactly identical, and yet you can tell which one is which just based on their voice and their personality.
And the Umbara arc, for example, is nothing but, and the Bad Batch arc, which we'll talk about later, is, I mean, those are 2 arcs that just have the clones as the main players, and one voice actor playing 90% of the characters on screen, and you can tell the difference between each one of clones, which is awesome.
Right. No, D. Bradley Baker deserves all the credit he can get for those. My favorite clone in particular, though, is Captain Rex. He's definitely the clone that we get the most exposure to because he's attached to Anakin and Ahsoka. He's part of Anakin's, you know, well, the 501st, and so we get a lot of exploration into him, and I won't go into too many details, but apparently his story isn't over because we did see him in the preview for season 2 of Rebels. So, yes.
Well, another thing when it comes to questions about the Clone Wars itself and about the Star Wars saga, it's the whole thing about Order 66.
How the heck were the clones that worked with the Jedi for so freaking long just able to turn on them like that and kill them all just because stupid old Palpatine said, execute Order 66?
And you know what I think was really great about this, I know some people had an issue with that, thought it was a big plot hole. I was always kind of one of those people that could kind of just take the explanation from the movie, which is that the clones are engineered to be more, you know, more docile, more obedient, more susceptible to orders, and they're ultimately loyal to the Republic and to the Chancellor. And so when the Chancellor says the Jedi are traitors and, you know, execute them, they're gonna say, okay, well, it sucks for them. We like these guys. We've been fighting with them for 3 years, but the Chancellor says, so, you know, we gotta follow him. But I think the thing that the Clone Wars for me really enhanced about it was it made it so much more tragic. When you realize that it wasn't the clones just following orders because of, you know, that's how they were wired necessarily. They didn't, you know, decide to follow Palpatine's order necessarily, but it was some kind of like chip implanted in their brain that just kind of, it was like flipping a switch. And so you kind of see throughout the progression of the series that the clones really did develop close relationships with the Jedi to the point where some of them probably wouldn't have wanted to, you know, kill their Jedi generals even if Palpatine had ordered them to, but then Palpatine gets the order and something just switches on in their brain where they can't control it. They're just like, oh, we got an order, good soldiers follow orders, it's just programmed in my brain now, kill the Jedi. And you can't help but wonder, you know, we see all the clones in the movie when they kill the Jedi, they've all got their helmets on, and I'm like, I almost want to like see their faces under those helmets and think like, are they struggling with like, man, I don't want to do this, but I can't control it, what the heck is happening, you know?
Well, with that, I think let's show a quick clip to show what happens with one particular clone when his programming malfunctions a little early. Let me try that again because that was loud.
Don't hold back! March forward! Oh, hey, there's no time to freeze up. Pull together. All to the finish line. Come on!
This was one of the clips that was shown when we got the announcement we were getting season 6 exclusively to Netflix, and my expression was, holy crap!
What? I mean, really, by season 6, looking at that action that they were able to put into just one frame, that scene gives me chills every time I see it. We really did get many of those answers that we were looking for when it comes to Order 66. Who was Master Sifo-Dyas? Sifo-Dyas, sorry. A lot of those things were answered and really explored in depth. This whole kind of chip, kind of Manchurian candidate kind of conspiracy going on.
And this is like the opening sequence for a 4-part story arc. So it gets a lot deeper and a lot crazier than that. So I won't spoil it, but you should really check this out.
Yes. Well, let's move on to another topic right here of the Force. One thing that the Clone Wars, I think, really did really awesomely is to get in-depth discussions about what the Force is. I know for some people, some of their criticisms of the prequel trilogy was, they took all the mysticism out of the Force and things like that. And let me tell you, if you're looking for mysticism in the Force, look no further than the Clone Wars to really get into the Force in its power, I should say. In fact, we have a clip right here I'm going to show from the Mortis trilogy, where if you want to get your mind-bending Force trip on, check out the Mortis trilogy. It is fantastic. So let me just show a quick clip from that and we'll discuss some of the Force.
Striking an unarmed man is hardly the Jedi way. You're Sith. You have a very simple view of the universe. I am neither Sith nor Jedi. I am much more. And so are you.
I see through your spells and visions, old man. Tell me what is going on here.
Force wielders.
And that's just a clip of how trippy in the Force that trilogy is.
Yes, of course we have on that planet, and we get to that trilogy, of course, the Father, the Son, and the Daughter, and the whole concept of what the whole concept of balance of the Force might mean, at least to some in the universe anyway.
Right.
And it's crazy because I still sort of in my own head, I guess, don't really know how to fit the Mortis trilogy in with, the rest of everything we see in the Clone Wars, just because it's one of those trippy, out there kind of things that, seems like it might be like a dream sequence or something that didn't really happen. They have said, like, the events on Mortis did actually happen, but I'm like, it still could have just been like a vision presented by the Force. I mean, if the events on Mortis really did happen, I think you can kind of take that the same way as like the events on Dagobah with Luke in the cave when he fights Darth Vader and sees his own face inside the mask. That happened, but obviously that wasn't Darth Vader. So I kind of think about the Mortis trilogy a little bit the same way, but it's kind of one of those things where I like that we've got something like this where it's just more out there, it raises a lot of questions, and there aren't really concrete answers to it, but it's just something really cool to see and to think about, and it just sort of adds to this mystery of the Force.
Let me throw up one thing. You're talking about the visions and things like that. That trilogy is the first one where we actually see our first appearance of Qui-Gon Jinn, with Liam Neeson back as playing Qui-Gon Jinn. And there was a lot of discussion about Obi-Wan seeing Qui-Gon. Is that really Qui-Gon Jinn or not, and things like that. And I think we might have got a clue that, at least from Rebels, in my mind, that it is definitely Qui-Gon, and that he says, Master Qui-Gon, why are you here? And he says, I am here because you are here. That is basically the same thing that Yoda says to Kanan in the first season of Rebels, when Yoda appears to Kanan in his voice. So it's just like those little echoes that we're still seeing within those two series. Kind of cool.
Get some
Yes.
questions?
Yeah, and there's just kind of a comment about this trilogy. The last episode where Anakin sees the visions, in my opinion, was one of the most brilliant cinematic moments of the Clone Wars. Like, you're finally, like, I think you can see like a lot of connections to the later episodes, the clips that they used from that portion. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but to me it was just done so masterfully, and just the last image that is shown when Anakin sees that is just like it like my heart was pounding during that scene. That was definitely one of my favorite scenes of that trilogy and of probably the Clone Wars.
If you think Anakin's turn to the dark side in episode 3 is abrupt, you should watch the Mortis trilogy.
That is true. I will say, as much as I love that trilogy, the third episode, I have some problems with the story as far as Anakin's character going up and down. Well, I mean, in one scene you have him seeing that vision of all the bad stuff he's going to do, and he says to the son, like, help me avoid that. And in the next scene, he's doing the exact same stuff. So, I don't know. He gets tricked by the dark side. It happens. But overall, still, I mean, a fantastic episode. And yeah, when he's having those visions of his future and a certain black cybernetic mask and all that kind of stuff, I mean, it's just so good.
We'll take one more question.
One more comment right there.
Personally, this is my favorite arc of all of season 3, because I just love it so much. But I did notice something that you kind of mentioned it. It kind of foreshadows what's going to happen to the galaxy in episodes 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it does. It's if you're looking for this sort of like premonition and sort of prophetic type of aspect to it, the Mortis arc gives you a lot of little hints as to what is going to come with the future of the galaxy, especially where we end up in the original trilogy. So,
in fact, I think Dave Filoni's even said that not even in the larger saga as a whole, but just within the Clone Wars, like he wanted the Mortis trilogy to have ties to like the future and be foreshadowing things, and that's part of the reason why they brought Sam Witwer in to voice Darth Maul after he had voiced the son on Mortis, was because he thought there'd be a little bit of a foreshadowing connection there.
Let's talk just a bit more again about the Force. Again, season 6 of the Clone Wars, we also get to see a lot more with Yoda. One of the things that we never quite saw or understood in the actual movies was how the heck does a Jedi attain the status of Force Ghost? It was one of those things, I think, George Lucas, I remember reading as a kid, like, episode 1, why didn't Qui-Gon disappear when he got stabbed by Darth Maul? I'll be explained in the next movie. Okay. And then it wasn't in episode 2. I'll be explained in the next movie. And then it was a deleted scene in episode 3, basically. Yeah. So this was really our chance to really see some idea, at least, of how a Jedi can attain, be stronger than you can possibly imagine.
Yes, as Obi-Wan would say. Yeah, it brings back Qui-Gon again, which, of course, again, voiced by Liam Neeson, which is great that we got such a prominent actor from the films to come back and voice the character in the Clone Wars. But Qui-Gon essentially takes Yoda on a journey of exploration through the Force, and it's also this arc in season 6 where we get a voice cameo appearance by none other than Luke Skywalker himself, Mark Hamill. But he's not playing Luke Skywalker, yes. So but I won't spoil that.
And he won an Emmy for his appearance in that, I believe, didn't
he? He did, I believe. Or was he at least nominated?
He was nominated.
Yes.
I'm not sure if he won or not. But I mean, man, yeah, this art was just fantastic. And I think I like this one even more than the Mortis art, just in terms of showing like you said, the mystical aspects of the Force, because the Mortis trilogy goes way out there, and they get sucked into this glowing, floating diamond in space, and you're not even sure what's happening in there the whole time. And I think the Yoda trilogy is a little bit more grounded in the sense that, like, okay, you can see where Yoda is, we know what's happening. He goes to Dagobah, it's like, okay, we know this is a real place because he's been here before. You hear Qui-Gon's voice, we know he's an actual character, he died, he's part of the Force now. But at the same time, it really, I think, helps to, like you said, bring back that mystical aspect of the Force. Where, I mean, Qui-Gon maybe mentioned something about midi-chlorians, but it's not this big scientific explanation. I mean, I just love this scene. We don't have the clip, but just the screenshot right here, where he's taking Yoda through Dagobah, and you see Yoda just like jumping over the logs and swinging on the vines, just like Luke does in Empire Strikes Back, and he's following just these sort of ethereal little floating balls of light as Qui-Gon is explaining to him the different sides of the Force and how you study it and how you attain true peace and are able to preserve yourself through the Force after death. And I just thought that was really cool.
Well, from the light side of the Force to the dark side.
Dun, dun, dun.
The Clone Wars definitely gave us the baddies, and it, boy oh boy, did we learn a lot about characters that, you know,
Are not so
previously,
nice.
yes, and honestly, previously weren't that developed. I mean, in the Clone Wars micro series, Saga Ventress was featured in that, but she was an assassin, kind of crazy, screaming around the place, and I quite frankly, I was just like, oh, that's interesting, but I didn't really like the character that much, and of course, you know, some fans went, you know, scratched their heads and said, what, when Darth Maul returns?
I think that was all of us.
Yeah.
Yes.
It ended up being really cool, but I
Yes.
think when we first got the reveal that he was going to be coming back, everyone just went, I'm sorry, what?
I was thinking back on it now, I'm kind of glad they did. I remember they announced, like, at the beginning of season 4 that they were bringing Darth Maul back at the end. And on the one hand, I was like, why would you spoil that now? Like, show us the episodes and let us find out for ourselves if he's actually coming back or not. But at the same time, I was like, this doesn't need to happen. Like, you just introduced Savage Opress, who's obviously supposed to be like a replacement Darth Maul. We don't need Darth Maul coming back too. And I think it gave us a whole season to kind of wrap our minds around it to, by the point where they actually brought him back, we're like, well, okay, we know this is happening, so let's see how it goes. And then they just blew it out of the water.
Yes, I think it was a shock to everyone, including Dave Filoni and the people of the Clone Wars, when George Lucas told them, oh, they're back to Darth Maul.
Yeah.
So, let's see a clip here from Darth Maul and his brother Savage Opress against Obi-Wan and Saga Ventress.
Yes.
I mean, what a great clip. Jason, what are your thoughts on it?
Oh my goodness. This is one of my favorite episodes from this season. Partly because we get a character like Asajj Ventress, who at the beginning of the series is very clearly bad guy. She works for Count Dooku, and she's just, you know, hates everybody. Then she becomes a threat to Sidious, and she's supposed to be gotten rid of. And then she finds herself in this place where she's not a Sith anymore. She's not part of the Separatists anymore. She doesn't want to become a Jedi because, you know, why would she? But yet she ends up having to work with Obi-Wan Kenobi. And it's one of the best interactions between a pair of characters. And you saw just a brief snippet of it there. But I thought it was great. And then, of course, Darth Maul coming back. And you thought Obi-Wan was cool, calm, and collected all the time? No, not so much with Darth Maul.
I was just thinking when watching that clip, we really got to see really in the Clone Wars how the mirror image of Obi-Wan in a lot of ways is Darth Maul. I mean, both are very intelligent. However, boy oh boy, Darth Maul hates Obi-Wan. I mean, I think I'd hate somebody too if they took my legs and, you know, not kick me down a pit and stuff, you know. But you know, just as things of seeing how he, I mean, that's, you know, kicking him in the face with a frying pan leg, that's not but Satine, I won't go any farther than saying that for people who haven't seen it, but my goodness, that is, again, one of the most powerful scenes, I think, in all of Star Wars, right there.
Oh my God.
As we get get there. And again, I think some have criticized the Clone Wars a little bit, including Dave Filoni a little bit when it comes to the dark side characters. I think he has said, you know, they did get maybe a little too dark at times in the Clone Wars. But honestly, we're dealing with a time in the Star Wars universe where things are getting darker. The transition from episode 2 to 3, things are not going well in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, I mean, the opening title crawl of Revenge of the Sith says, you know, there are heroes on both sides and evil is everywhere. And of course, at the time of the movie, you're thinking like, oh, well, there's Palpatine, there's Dooku, there's General Grievous, there's maybe some corruption in the Senate or whatever, and that's some evil that's kind of everywhere. But then you watch the Clone Wars, you see all these different villains that we never knew existed, but it's like, holy crap, Darth Maul is still out there somewhere? Like, wow, that's a lot of evil. But yeah, I mean, they just did such a fantastic job bringing the character back to the point where they still did a little bit of a murky job explaining like how he survived with half a body for 10 years in some trash pit in the Outer Rim. And you know, the explanation was basically just he hated Obi-Wan so much that his hatred kept him alive because he couldn't allow himself to die until he got revenge or something. But you know, they once they brought that character back to his full strength, I guess. You know, at first he comes back with the robot legs, and then you know he gets sort of reshaped by the Death Watch, I guess, where he's more human. And just, I mean, the rage and just the hatred and everything that they characterize him with, the fantastic job that Sam Witwer does voicing him. It's like they do such a cool job bringing him back that you kind of just forget about like, oh, well, you know, I don't really care how he came back because now I'm just glad he's back because he's such an awesome character.
And one of the great things about the Clone Wars that it did with the dark side is it treated the villains, you know, as actual characters. It didn't just like say, oh, well, there's the villain. They got entire arcs out of seasons. In particular, there was entire 3 and 4 episodes just completely devoted to these villains, where we wouldn't even sometimes see Anakin, Obi-Wan, or any of the Jedi. So it was really kind of interesting because they took time with the villains and developed them into, you know, actual menaces or characters that we felt conflicted because they were so cool but they're really evil, or characters like Ventress who had a complete, you know, total character arc throughout the seasons where, like I said before, she was evil at the beginning and then she ends up in this very sort of nebulous gray area where she's kind of helping the Jedi, begrudgingly, sort of, and to the point where I really want to see where she goes next.
Yes.
Yeah, I absolutely love what they did with Ventress's character too, because, I mean, for me, I know, Joey, you said at the beginning she was kind of like, one-dimensional villain, you kind of take her or leave her. I mean, I was more of a fan of Ventress at the beginning. I liked her a lot in the Clone Wars micro series. I had also gotten into some of the Dark Horse Clone Wars Republic comics that came out back like in between episodes 2 and 3, and she's got a whole story arc in there. And so she was like one of my favorite characters already from the expanded universe. And so when I found out she was going to be in this series, I was like, okay, cool. I just want to see some really cool lightsaber duels between Anakin and Ventress and all this kind of thing. But then, you know, they kind of took me by surprise with the way they went with her character in the show, where, you know, like you said at the beginning, she kind of starts out in that same role where she's a rival and nemesis, whatever, for the Jedi, and then she gets betrayed by Count Dooku. We find out that, unlike in the comics where she was from Ratatak, you know, she's from Dathomir, and that brought in this whole other side of the faction of witches and introduced that new faction.
They're creepy.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so she goes from Sith apprentice to Night Sister to
Bounty hunter.
To you know, begrudging, like you said, unexpected ally of Obi-Wan, to then kind of just going off on her own path, becoming a bounty hunter, and we get to see some cool solo stories with her. So, yeah, I mean, it was a really new and interesting take on that character. Yeah, I mean, we may get to see a couple more unfinished stories about her coming up soon. So,
Yeah, and
can't wait to see where they go with that.
real quick about Mother Talzin, I mean, that's a whole other kind of mystical, I mean, we're, again, going back to the Force in some ways, we have this whole idea of magics.
By like Mother Talzin, the leader of the Night Sisters,
Yes.
for those who are wondering.
Mother Talzin,
Force, which is
yes.
disturbing.
Yes, very, very, we have, yeah, if you like zombies, there's great stuff in there for you. But yes, Mother Talzin, some of the best audio work right there in that voice as well. Yeah. Let's go ahead and talk, as long as we're in this dark place, let's stay in there a little bit longer. Let's talk about some of the scum and villainy
a wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Which
We must be cautious.
I kind of like these guys. You think you wouldn't like, but these are some of the coolest dang characters in Star Wars, I think. Right here from left to right, of course, we have Hondo Anaka.
He's the best ever. End of story. We're done.
Cad Bane might have something to say about that.
Cad Bane, of course, on the right-hand side, Pre Vizsla, and now she's escaping my head right now.
Aura Singh.
Aura Singh
With young Boba Fett.
Yes, young Boba. So, I mean, right here, again, we're getting some stories here of young Boba. Again, nice to see him kind of make that transition from kid holding his dad's helmet to
Kid wearing his dad's helmet.
yes, just about. Oh gosh, we got so. Did anyone here go to Celebration out by the way? If you guys were lucky enough to see the Untold Clone Wars panel, it's online right now. You can see some. How would I call it? Like it's a not concept art.
The animatics.
Animatics.
They're basically like unfinished animation for episodes that they were working on that they didn't finish with like the textures and the lighting and everything, but you can see the rough character models like blocking out what would have happened in the scene.
Yeah, we got to see they're this close to giving us an arc featuring Cad Bane and young Boba Fett, and actually Boba in Mandalorian armor. It's this close to showing us. So it's, I believe it's on StarWars.com, so you can see those animatics, some really cool scenes with them fighting Count Dooku. Well, let's see a quick clip here showing some of these bounty hunters and such at their finest with our introduction to Cad Bane.
God, change happens now. Here we go. Now, let's go talk to some senators. No, me. No.
We cannot allow the Chancellor to move this enhanced privacy invasion bill forward.
We're all in agreement then. Morning, senators. You should all consider yourselves to be in my power. As long as everybody behaves, this will be quick and painless. Do nothing, and it will all be over soon.
I don't know who you think you are, but I, for one, have no intention of listening to this kind of insolence.
All right then. If you'll all gather at the center of this lovely atrium, my co-workers and I will relieve you of any communication devices.
There it is. Okay.
That is the Senate building, by the way. Yes.
Yeah.
And
And that-
bounty hunters invaded the Galactic Senate building.
Yeah.
And that's from the season, the last episode of season 1, and that is still one of my favorite scenes from the whole show.
Speaking of which, I want to promote this right here. If you haven't picked up one of these suckers right here, make sure you pick one before you go. That, even though it was at the end of season 1, you actually won't be able to see that until the 51st episode on here, Hostage Crisis.
This, by the way, is the complete viewing order
Yes.
of Clone Wars. They were not all aired in chronological order.
Mostly through the first 3 seasons.
Mostly through the first 3 seasons. We've got a bunch of them up
We
there.
got tons of them.
And you can pick them up after the panel. But yes, no. As far as the scum and villainy and the bounty hunters, Cad Bane is amazing. He's my favorite bounty hunter. Sorry, Boba Fett, not really. But my favorite of the scum and villainy is gotta be Hondo Ohnaka, who is this great pirate captain, and he's just over the top, and he loves his job, and he's just fantastic, and I really cannot wait to see him come back. He's still got some of my favorite lines in the entire series. You know,
But you know they listen. Speak softly and drive up the attack.
Yes. Oh my goodness, I love these characters, and they are some of the best in the entire series. So
Yeah, Hondo is definitely fantastic. As far as sort of towing that line of like, he's not really a villain, but he's definitely not a hero. He just kind of does whatever he feels like. In one episode, he'll be a bad guy. In the next episode, he'll be begrudgingly helping the good guys. I like that line too he has in the Young Jedi arc where he's like, lucky for you, today I like children. He's just like begrudgingly helping these younglings escape from the Separatists and stuff. But just to, I mean, we've seen the clip with Cad Bane and Aura Singh. We've talked about Hondo, who we love, and I just would be remiss if I didn't also mention Pre Vizsla and the Death Watch. Because I know these guys caused some controversy when they first came up, and some people were like, oh, they butchered the Mandalorians and the whole warrior culture and whatever because they made them pacifists. But part of what I loved about that was that you still had this faction of the Death Watch who were the warriors. I think for me, throughout the entire season, or throughout the entire Clone Wars series, the Death Watch was my favorite sort of like the villains to root for. Because even though they were the bad guys, even though we were supposed to, you know, like Duchess Satine and Obi-Wan and everything, I wanted to see these guys come back and take over Mandalore. And from, you know, ever since that season 2 arc where, you know, you see them sort of planning to stage their little coup and it doesn't go well by the end and Dooku sort of abandons them and leaves them on their own, I was like, okay, I can't wait to see more of these guys later. I want to see them come back and try to work this out. Plus, of course, you know, you've got Pre Vizsla, the leader of the Death Watch, with the ancient black lightsaber that he talks about, you know, the ancient Mandalorian stealing from the Jedi Temple. And I'm like, that was so cool. And then, of course, I mean, man, that final fight scene between Vizsla and Darth Maul. I mean, in that season 5 story where, you know, with Maul and the Mandalorians and everything, of course, in that final episode, we've got the duel with Maul and Savage and Darth Sidious, where Sidious finally, you know, gets his hands dirty and is like, Maul's back, he's causing trouble, I'm gonna deal with this myself. And people just love that fight. I love that fight.
Yes.
That gets a lot of credit and it deserves a lot of credit. But I feel like the episode previous to that, where Darth Maul and Pre Vizsla fight it out for control of the Death Watch, is probably my favorite duel, you know, lightsaber duel in the Clone Wars, because it's not just a lightsaber duel. You know, you see this Mandalorian warrior who obviously doesn't have Darth Maul's lightsaber training and force abilities and all that kind of stuff, but he's, you know, using his jetpack and his blasters and his flamethrower and his rocket darts and all this other kind of stuff to, you know, level the playing field as much as he can. And that's just such an intense, awesome, complex fight where both of them are just like pulling out all the stops.
Absolutely, absolutely. I have a few comments here from the audience. Yes?
Yeah, originally when I saw Cad Bane on the show, I did not like him. I don't know why. Like, when I first saw him, I thought, like, they're trying too hard to make this new character look cool. They're trying too hard to make him stand up to Boba Fett. Originally, that's what I originally thought. And then kind of as I saw more and more of him, you know, I saw, hey, maybe this guy is justified the way that he is. You know, I saw him more as just, oh, he's the cool bounty hunter. You actually see more and more of him being this cold, calculating. And, you know, when you get to see more and more of him, he really started to grow on me in a sense. And it's like, you know, maybe, you know, they do try to make him look cool, yes, but maybe the fact that that coolness is in a sense justified in a lot of the things that he does. So.
Oh, it's totally justified.
And again, it's unfortunately we didn't get to see, you know, the upcoming arc with Cad Bane and Boba, because that was going to show us kind of Cad Bane. What was it? Dave Filoni was saying Cad always had a rivalry with Jango.
Yeah, he wanted to see
a better bounty hunter.
Between him and Jango, who was the better bounty hunter. They obviously never got to find that out or have their fight to the death because Mace Windu stepped in and took Jango's head off. But then Cad Bane is like, oh, but here's this perfect clone of Jango Fett, so I'm going to take him under my wing, train him to be as good as his father was, and then we'll get to duke it out.
So yes. Yes, and then, go ahead, yes.
I personally love Pre Vizsla and Hondo and Cad Bane. I love Cad Bane because of the fact that he is so awesome. I mean, even in the Deception arc in season 4, I mean, even though him and Moralo Eval and Reiko Hardeen, all that stuff, I mean, I think he was awesome in that arc. I love Pre Vizsla for the fact that he is so crazy. He is just so determined to take over Mandalore and with the black lightsaber. But I love I have a hate-love for Hondo. Because I love him when he's siding with the Jedi, when he's making jokes, but the moment he's against the Jedi, I'm like, kick his butt, he's a jerk.
I just love the inclusion of the spaghetti western sort of.
Oh yes,
yeah, I definitely love how he's like that old school, almost like a gentleman kind of villain. I mean, you saw in that clip, he's like, he'll toss a thermal detonator into your room behind your back, then politely tip his hat before he blows your brains up.
That is Clint Eastwood in Star Wars.
Yes, absolutely, Clint Eastwood right there.
By the way,
The word you're looking for or scoundrel.
Yeah,
You
scoundrel.
can go back and forth depending on their mood.
Yes.
Let's take one more question, comment here.
Just have one comment about him. Whenever I see Hondo, I always immediately think of Lando Calrissian. I think he's the Lando Calrissian precursor rogue character.
Yes.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. But by the way,
Real quick.
So when I'm looking at your map here, because I'm fortunate enough to be able to look forward to watching all of these for the first time.
Okay.
So as I look at the map, the 3-digit number 2 represents season 2, correct?
Correct.
1 represents season 1. Would you recommend that I watch them from season 1, episode 1 through, or would you recommend that I go and watch them based on the story arc? So start with 216, and then watch 116, then watch 301, then watch 303, then go back and watch 101.
Personally, I'll ask each one of you guys. Personally, I would, as a person going new into the Clone Wars, I think it'll help you not be as confused as a person watching them when they were coming out on Cartoon Network. It was a little confusing watching a character suddenly appear again. I thought they were killed. So yes, it goes season 2, 216, then 116, and then the T is for the theatrical movie, and then going on from
So
there.
your recommendation would be not to watch based on the left column, but to watch based on the right column?
Yeah, just watch them like down, in order.
Yeah, I think you'll get a lot more character development, especially jumping into the 2nd and 3rd season, where the 1st season, honestly, and anyone here who's followed the series like I did, the 1st season had its ups and downs. Not every episode of the Clone Wars is gold. I would give some of them silvers.
and there were a couple of duds.
Yeah,
And then there was B.J. Hughes.
yes, that's not gonna do that. Or going into the void,
And I mean, I also watched the series in order as it aired when it was on TV, but since it came out on Netflix, I've been reading, I just would read some comments from people online who hadn't gotten a chance to watch the series before and said that, they found this chronological order of episodes online and that watched it in that order, and they were like, oh, this made a lot of sense going in chronological order for the first time, so that's what I would recommend.
I would recommend that as well. And like we said, for those that are interested, we do have these available.
Many of
them available after the panel.
And by the way, when we say chronological order, that's the sort of the correct timeline order within the Star Wars universe, not the chronological order.
The airing order.
Yeah.
Yes. So let's go ahead and talk quickly about Anakin Skywalker. Now, in the prequels, honestly, Anakin, I think, was one of those moments. Some people criticize. For me, I can think of 3 things. There was Jar Jar, midichlorians, and Anakin. That people criticized. Sometimes a little too harshly and unfairly, I think. But with the Clone Wars, if you really want to see the character of Anakin be that hero that you heard of, Obi-Wan, best star pilot in the galaxy, and he was a good friend. We get to see Anakin Skywalker being that good friend. Yes, a bit, brash, a bit,
That's wrong.
And unfortunately, we still don't get to see as much of him as I would like being the best star pilot in the galaxy. We never really got like a dedicated space battle episode where Anakin's just in his starfighter flying through, tearing up battle droids and stuff.
But we do get moments, and they're terrific. But the other thing that we also get with this, in addition to seeing Anakin be the hero, rather just like this angsty kid going through becoming a Jedi Knight, is the fact that we start getting seeds and hints of the dark side in him. And so it doesn't seem, and I know some people in the prequels complained a little bit about the fact that his turn to the dark side was too fast. I was okay with it for the most part, but for those that thought it was way too fast, the Clone Wars really helps to drag it out.
Yes.
Because we start getting seeds of this very early on. Season 2 has one of the best little moments where he is interrogating the Geonosian leader, Poggle the Lesser.
Yes.
Because his Padawan Ahsoka is in danger, and Poggle's not giving him answers. And so right there, in the middle of a Republic starship in the cell, he force chokes Poggle the Lesser, and you get just a little hint of the Imperial March with the music, and it's still one of the most chilling early scenes of Anakin starting his descent to the dark side.
Yes.
It's not even a little hint of the Imperial March. They almost go full-blown Imperial March right there, and I remember sitting there watching it, and as Anakin's getting angry at him, I'm thinking, like, is he gonna force choke him? Like, are they gonna go there? It's only halfway through through season 2. Like, I know we're gonna get there eventually, but they wouldn't go there yet, would they? They just went there.
Yes.
That was awesome.
That was a very good moment to see. Like, there's a lot of times with Anakin's on screen, I'm like, hey, it's Anakin, and then he starts doing stuff, and you're like, oh no, Anakin, no, don't. And that's one scene that he just goes, closes the door so no one can see what he's about to do, the Poggle, goes and chokes him, and then comes out, I know where they are. Well, how'd you find out the information?
That doesn't
matter.
Yeah, also, I think Matt Lanter did a great job doing the performance of Anakin. Certainly, obviously, like you said, Anakin gets a lot of criticism for the prequels, not just because of his turn to the dark side and some of the characterization issues, but also, everyone knows there's, people who complain about the performance. Both Jake Lloyd and Hayden Christensen, not the best actors in the world or anything like that, but with Matt Lanter's performance of the character in the Clone Wars, I didn't hear any complaints. Along those lines from the series.
In fact, I want him to be put into special editions of the prequels. I think we should put Matt Lanter in there, please. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about, really, in my opinion, it comes down to it, the whole Clone Wars series revolves really about one particular character, and I saw her walk in the door.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know we have a couple people over here who'd agree with that.
And that would be Ahsoka right here. So, she'll be available for pictures and autographs. Guys, I don't know really where to begin. I mean, we so much to say about Ahsoka. I mean, we see the war through her eyes.
Yeah. It was one of the things where when the Clone Wars movie came out, which, like I've said before, not the best movie. Would it worked as a TV show? Not the best movie. She comes on the scene, all of a sudden, oh, you're Anakin Skywalker's Padawan. Everybody goes, huh?
Yeah.
What?
Including Dave Filoni, when Dave Filoni was like, when George Lucas says, okay, Anakin has a Padawan. And he goes, no, she does. No, he doesn't. He goes, yes, he does.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, he doesn't have. Oh, yeah, that's right, you're the boss, okay. So, yes, Anakin has a Padawan, and again, from the beginning of the Clone Wars movie, I was one of those folks going, oh my gosh, this is just trying to market to little kids, and this, oh gosh, she's annoying with the whole Sky Guy, R2-y.
She had the worst nicknames for everybody.
Yes.
And I mean, I didn't even mind the fact that Anakin had a Padawan. I was like, okay, cool, let's see where they go with this. This is going to be interesting. But then, like I said, when she just comes with the kind of bratty attitude, and I mean, especially because I love Anakin Skywalker and just sort of the whole mythology of the Chosen One and this legendary warrior and everything. And then she comes as this Padawan and she's like, you're stuck with me, Sky Guy. I'm like, you don't talk to the Chosen One like that.
And I was kind of okay with Sky Guy, but then she said R2-y, and I was like, R2's already a nickname. Don't ruin it.
I think the thing, I mean, before it starts sounding like we're bashing on Ahsoka or anything, I think the biggest thing that I love about the character is that we got to watch her grow and evolve over the course of the show. And I think the best thing about that character is not even the fact that she was a good character by the end of the show, which she was, but I think
one of the best characters.
Yeah, she was fantastic by the end, but I think it was just enhanced that much more by seeing where she had come from, and just watching the evolution and the progression of that character over the course of the show to where she really is strong and independent and her own character by the end. We'll keep talking about it, but can we?
Let's see a quick clip here of her kind of towards the end of the series in her prime, as it were. Yes. Just put a little spice of Hondo in there at the end of that clip.
Hondo flying Boba Fett's ship, the Slave One. Yes,
Yeah.
there is a good reason for that. But
Yeah, I asked Joey to put that clip in there because it's one of those really awesome clips where you just get a little bit of everything. I was like, that's a great clip to show Ahsoka and her maturation and development. Because, I mean, you don't really see it in the clip, but throughout that story arc, that's at the end of the Young Jedi arc where, she gets to lead and train a group of young Jedi who were almost, in a similar position and, just a little bit younger than she was at the beginning of the series. And now she's old enough to be, sort of taking on a little bit of a mentor role. Obviously, she's not like a full Jedi Knight taking on her own Padawan or anything, but she's helping these little kids along saying like, hey, I was once where you guys are now, and this is where you get your lightsaber crystals, and this is how you use the Force and stuff like that. And then, but then we see her take on Grievous, and it's this awesome fight scene. I also like that this is one of the clips that actually, shows Grievous as a credible threat, because
absolutely
one of the few gripes that I have about the Clone Wars series is that they just turned Grievous into a, cartoony villain that the heroes trample all over. And
kind of twiddling his mustache as he runs away, snapping the whiplash.
And in this fight, you actually, when I was watching this for the first time, I was like, oh, they're not actually going to kill off Ahsoka right here, are they?
Oh, yeah.
They wouldn't do that, but at the same time, we know Grievous has killed Jedi, and he's actually, putting up a good fight here. But Ahsoka puts up a great fight too, and then Hondo shows up at the end, in Slave One of all things. And
the Youngling arc is just a fantastic arc in general. When it comes to this action, Ahsoka, the Force, again, we're talking that, and for you Doctor Who fans, David Tennant is in it as well.
And he won an Emmy for it.
Yes.
If you walk up to some random people at this convention, especially the Doctor Who fans, and say, hey, do you know what TV series David Tennant won an Emmy for? I bet you they won't know it's Star Wars: The Clone Wars. So there's your surprise trivia for the day.
Okay.
But the thing is many people, went from not really knowing what to do with Ahsoka to by the end of the series, I can't really think of anybody that I know personally that didn't think that she was an amazing character. And then when this happens, and she leaves the Jedi Order, it was the most heartbreaking ending to a season.
And almost
ever.
a series.
Yeah.
We were like, oh God, I'm never coming back.
There's one line at the end of the episode where, Anakin said, she's standing in front of the Jedi Temple, Anakin's like, they're offering you back, Ahsoka, and he holds out her Padawan braid, and she closes his hand around it and says, I'm sorry, Master, I'm not coming back. And then that was at the end of season 5, which at the time we thought there was going to be a season 6. A couple weeks later, they announced that the show's been canceled, and then you watch that scene again, and her line saying, I'm sorry, Master, I'm not coming back, feels like Dave Filoni and the Clone Wars crew saying that to the fans, and I was just like, oh, that hurts so much more.
Yeah. But just to talk about how that all really affects the whole series in general, I think for me, really we got to see the arrogance, I think, of the Jedi Order in a lot of ways, how they would turn away someone like Ahsoka, and through her walking away, yet another thing to help us show with Anakin,
Something that he lost.
Yeah, his fear of loss right there, and all of a sudden in Revenge of the Sith, him saying this is where the fun begins, right there, and that is, at least from as far as I know, first spoken by Ahsoka, and I'm thinking to myself like, oh, that's what Ahsoka said, and now Ahsoka's not around for Anakin, so it really has an impact, I think, for the greater saga itself.
Yeah, but thankfully we have not seen the last of Ahsoka or some of these other
Absolutely.
Clone Wars series. We obviously wouldn't end this on a downer note.
No way.
Like, oh, Ahsoka walked away. Everybody have a good rest of the day.
Yes, because there's luckily more Clone Wars stories continuing in different formats. First of all, of course, we've had Son of Dathomir, which was released by Dark Horse Comics, one of the last series that Dark Horse put together. Pretty nice series showing us some more Darth Maul. Not quite wrapping up everything with Darth Maul, which is very interesting.
Still out there?
Somewhere, so we might see him still in Rebels, perhaps? I don't know, we'll just have to see. And we also have a few arcs that they put up on StarWars.com. When the Clone Wars was canceled, they were about halfway into production for, I believe, season 6 and even season 7. So there's recorded dialogue, there are even animatic scenes that were put together. There's two great arcs. One of them, the Utapau arc, which kind of deals with Anakin dealing with Ahsoka leaving him for a little bit. And then,
And really
of course,
getting into more of that Anakin Obi-Wan relationship.
oh yes, definitely some brother kind of stuff going on with Anakin and Obi-Wan in that arc. And of course the Bad Batch arc, which was premiered recently at Star Wars Celebration. Fantastic arc for any clone fans out there, because I got to tell you, it's really fantastic, and I want action figures of these guys. And of course, coming up with Rebels, we have the Rebels season 2 premiere, and my goodness, I was lucky enough to be at the celebration when they premiered that trailer, and when Captain Rex says, "My name's Captain Rex," my God, people were crying and they were screaming, and it was fantastic.
Place went nuts.
Yes, it was so fantastic. So.
Well, I was going to say, we know another big character is coming back in Rebels who already appeared in the season 1 finale, and we just thought we were going to get more of that. We had no idea they'd bring Captain Rex in this soon, so.
Yes. And then we get Hondo Ohnaka, best character, best scoundrel in the Clone Wars. So I'm super excited to get more of Hondo, but that's not the biggest Clone Wars
I want to
character.
see an episode. We know Lando is in Rebels too. I just want to see a whole episode of Lando and Hondo like cheating and swindling each other.
Yes.
One of the better and stabbing each other in the back the entire episode.
That would be incredible.
Yes. But of course we have Lords of the Sith. I just read that book. If you're a Cham Syndulla fan, or maybe just slightly, Hera from Rebels, her father is Cham Syndulla,
who was featured in a couple of episodes of the Clone Wars.
The Ryloth arc, I believe. And yes, we can learn more about him in Lords of the Sith. Coming up very soon this summer is Dark Disciple, where we can
believe that's June.
July.
Okay. Yes. So yes, they have a preview copy downstairs. Unfortunately, it's blank. I tried. I looked. There's nothing in there. So yes, that's actually, I want to say at least 4, possibly 8 episodes.
It's 8 episodes. It's going to encompass 8 episodes of Clone Wars. It would have been 2 different 4-episode story arcs with Asajj Ventress and Quinlan Vos going on this mission together to sort of infiltrate the Separatists. And it's basically the Jedi wanting to take down Dooku. The Jedi Council, selects Quinlan Vos for the job because he is unorthodox, and they think he can get in on this. But then, they also go to Ventress for help now that she's not working for the bad guys anymore. And they're like, hey, the bad guys, Dooku, we need your help with this. So it sounds like a really interesting story and concept there. And when I found out that it was going to be 8 episodes instead of 4, I was like, I definitely got to get my hands on this and see where they were going with that story.
And of course, Ahsoka coming back. She is back. We saw the Rebels season 2 premiere. Guys, this is something to watch. Mind blown. There is a scene in season 2 Rebels.
Don't even.
I'm not going to go there. I'm not spoiling anything.
The whole thing is fantastic, and not just for its
now
strong. Darth freaking Vader. Like,
yes.
The Vader that you've wanted to see since
yes.
the original trilogy. This is not like cartoony villain Vader. This is like Vader stepping out of the shadows, the full costume, the lightsaber, the music is playing, James Earl Jones doing the voice. Like, he is scary and intimidating and powerful, and it is awesome.
And this is the most terrified I've ever been of Darth Vader, is in Rebels, not in the movie. So just, when season 2 premieres in June, you have to watch this show.
Well, we have a few prizes to give out. Jason, yeah, he had a 2-minute slide. I just put that in there. Jason, can you please say it as Jar Jar?
Misa, what prizes?
So, as I...
He's a bigger all week.
As I said before, I kind of snuck these away from the Del Rey booth over in Celebration. So we have about 5 of these posters of Dark Disciple. And if you'd like one, then I'm going to ask some questions here. Gentlemen, you can ask them as well.
Just because she came in full Ahsoka costume, we want to give one of these to the best little Ahsoka at the convention. So if you want to come up,
Dark Disciple. All right.
There you go.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Ahsoka.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
So,
all right. So that means we have 4. Before you shake your head.
And if you have a problem with that, you've turned to the dark side.
Yes, I'm sorry. So here we go. So, first question, gentlemen, do you have a Clone Wars question you want to go? And I'll ask mine. I bet it's you.
Okay. Who is the character who killed Zero the Hutt? You were the first hand I saw.
Sly Snoodles?
Sly Snoodles, that is correct.
Yes.
Yes, Sly Snoodles, the singer from Jabba's Palace in Return of the Jedi. It was the most disgusting romance that you will ever not want to see.
Well, they make out and it's awesome.
Alright, here's another question. What is the name of the beat-up old cargo freighter that Anakin Skywalker flies in the Clone Wars movie? I saw this hand first. The Twilight.
Twilight, come on up.
Okay, I've got one more here. Which?
And raise your hands up high, because I saw a couple like half hands on that one. I was like, are you guys raising your hands? Are you waiting? Are you thinking? I don't know.
So, which ancient Sith Lord does Yoda encounter on Moraband in the Lost Missions episodes?
I saw the guy in the aisle right here.
Darth
Vader.
Vader is correct. That is the cameo by Luke Skywalker, or by Mark Hamill, by the way.
Yes. I'm going to ask one right here. Is this the last one? Oh, I can ask the last one. Okay, this is a clone question. The last question. Which clone trooper shot and killed Jedi Master Pong Krell? Which?
We've already got a poster.
We already got a poster. Oh, that was a Dogma! That is correct. Good, awesome job, man. And I think before we shove out of here and get for the next panel, I want to get to here we go. So once again, thank you guys for coming. And again, this is Jason Hunt from Wampa's Lair podcast, Kyle Avery from the Star Wars The Saga Continues podcast. So check them out. We have some cards up here if you'd like.
Cards if you want to follow us in our various adventures.
And lots of these chronological order things. We have tons of them too. So if you want to give them to your friends,
they're up here at the
come on up. We got a lot of them. And thank you very much for coming. Enjoy
And
the day.
may the Force be with you.
And there they all go.